And welcome back inside the world's worst movie theater. And also, speaking of welcome back Eddie Murphy to this list. You're back on here again. I believe this is the second time now, as we take a look at my 18th worst movie that I ever saw. And it was the first movie I ever saw in a theater that I can honestly say I absolutely hated. And that is, of course, the 2002 ASIC that is The Adventures of Pluto Nash. This is a movie which features Eddie Murphy and is directed by Ron Underwood, who did City Slickers and other movies that we talked about on Time About the Movies and other shows on this channel. But this is Eddie Murphy at his absolute worst, and that's saying a lot, but man, this is bad. This is really, really bad. So after his successful nightclub is blown to flaming bits, Pluto, played by Eddie Murphy, and his band travel across the moon looking for clues as to who is behind the arson. Along with Bruno, played by Randy Quaid, and Dina, played by Rosario Dawson, Pluto visits a seedy motel, his secret hideout, and the casino of the most powerful man on the moon, searching for the evildoer, only to find out that the destruction of his club may be his own fault. If you can't figure out what the hell the twist is at that point, then, yeah, you clearly have not seen enough bad movies, because let me tell you something. This really was the first movie I ever saw in a theater. I had been going to the movies about, 7 years before? I think 1995 was the first time I ever went to a movie theater that I remember, when I went to see Free Willy 2, and I don't remember liking that one that much, but this was the first movie I ever saw at that point that I honestly thought was absolute garbage right from the get-go. Now, I saw Scooby-Doo that same summer in the theater, and Scooby-Doo, this movie like Scooby-Doo looks like Citizen Kane by comparison, and I'm not even kidding, folks. This movie is bad. It's really, really bad. Like I said before, Eddie Murphy has made some terrible movies in his career, but even so, this is still the bottom of the barrel. Like, this is still the absolute worst thing that Eddie Murphy has attached himself to. Yeah, Norbit has some form of quality to it, with good special effects that even were nominated for an Oscar, but this... It's unbelievable how lazy this movie is. First of all, the movie was sitting in development hell for nearly 20 years before Warner Brothers finally put the green light to it. 20 years. This thing had been sitting on a shelf since 1982. Even earlier than that, because this was filmed in 2000. I think this was filmed in sometime in 2000 or 2001. So even it's more than that. All the way to the start of the 1980s. You would think that within 20 years, somebody would have looked at the script and go, maybe we should change this around so it can fit into modern setting, modern times. But nope. This movie is so lazy that it doesn't even bother to do that. They make jokes that are so dated. It's like they didn't even bother to change anything from the script whatsoever. And this is the first example that I remember of a studio putting in way too much money for what they thought was going to be a potential franchise. There were movies before this that maybe the studios were hoping would become a hit enough so they would become their own franchise, but no. When you're putting $100 million to this movie, somebody at Warner Brothers thought this was worthy of $100 million, and honestly, the dude who greenlit this shouldn't have just gotten fired. He should have been burned at the stake. We should have gone back to, the Salem witch trials and just, burn this guy, pretend that he's a witch and burn him. That's how bad this movie is. And guess how much the movie made back? $7 million. That's it. That was the total this movie made, and that was worldwide. This thing didn't even make $5 million domestically. This is the prime quintessential example of a massive financial flop. And I don't think any parody ever could have painted the perfect picture of how the studio must have felt that day after that weekend than what Robot Chicken did, not but a few years later. Delete! Yep, that's exactly what it feels like when you waste money on a movie that nobody was going to watch. This is an absolute mess of a film. This is a disastrous film. This was Eddie Murphy at his absolute worst, and that is saying a lot, trust me. This movie is nothing. It's nothing funny. It's nothing clever. It was a script that was sitting on a shelf for decades, and it shows. Not a single laugh in this entire movie, not a bit of anything clever or impressive visual-wise, acting-wise. The whole movie is a gigantic mess of stupidity, lack of creativity, or enjoyment on any level whatsoever. It just did not work. It's the absolute worst movie that was released that year, and it's easily one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my entire life. Avoid this movie like the plague. The Adventures of Pluto Nash, my 18th pick for my worst movie of all time. So, if you want to hear what I had to say about another bad comedy, Soul Plane, check out the video I have here, and also check out the playlist below. Until then, I'll see you guys next week. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.